Hello and welcome back to the new Dig Norfolk Gardener. Now it's the first weekend of May and that's when I like to sow our basil seeds and also a few fennel seeds. Fennel is something we sow continually from this time of the year all the way through to about July. Basil is something we really like to make our own pesto and to make tomato sauces for bologneses and things like that, and it will actually grow here in the greenhouse where we are now along with the tomatoes. They seem to be really good friends. Now, to sow these particular seeds, I like to sow them in multi-purpose compost, a 50-50 mix along with vermiculite, because in particular with basil it likes to be well drained. Now basil likes to be sown in warmth, doesn't like the cold, and if you had a window propagator that would be good. In our case we're going to be popping them onto a heat mat so that for the first 2 to 3 weeks of their life they're around about 20 degrees. And actually with basil all through their life they like to be warm. Now what I have done is to saturate this compost that we've put into these trays, because what you don't want to be doing is continually watering the seeds and the seedlings because they will rot off. Basil in particular doesn't like a huge amount of water. It needs to be moist, but it doesn't want to be absolutely sitting in water. It'll just keel over and die. So now that we've got the compost nice and saturated, we can sow our seeds. Well, they are really tiny little seeds. They aren't very big at all. So I'll just scatter those over the compost. And once these do germinate, as I say, we shall prick these out and they will then be pricked out into modules. And because compost can clearly lie very wet, what I am going to do is to cover the basil with vermiculite. I just give that a light covering. And I shan't water these anymore. I shall just pop these onto a heat mat, and once they've germinated, and actually before they probably even get their first true leaves, we shall prick those out and into modules and then let them grow away. But it is important for basil that it does have heat. If you're going to grow it in a greenhouse, it needs to be around about 20 degrees to get these seeds to germinate. As I say, we're going to be using heat mats, and they'll go down into the house onto the heat mats until they've germinated and for the first couple of weeks of their lives. Once they've been germinated for a couple of weeks, we can then prick them out and they can come up here to the greenhouse. But it is important that you don't keep watering and watering and watering. The compost that they're going to sit in the modules just need to be moist. Damp. They don't want to be saturated, otherwise the basil really won't like it. So that's the basil done. I'll stick that over here. Next I want to sow some fennel, some Florence fennel, and this will be the first sowing of the season. Sometimes when you sow at this time of the year it's a bit hit and miss, it can bolt. Fennel is a really strange one to grow, and that and sometimes just decide I'm going to bolt. It's too hot or it's too wet for whatever reason, but it suddenly decides that it wants to bolt. So we shall do 2 or 3 sowings between now and July. So they're the fennel seeds, if you haven't seen fennel seeds before. And again, just like the basil, we'll just scatter them over the surface. We don't want too many because, as I say, we're going to make 2 or 3 sowings over the next couple of months or so. And then, just like the basil, I'm actually going to cover these with vermiculite. This is a bit lighter. And I don't want to overwater these and make things difficult for the seedlings. And again with the fennel, they're going to go down onto the heat mat just until they germinate, and then we shall prick them out in a couple of 3 weeks time, and they can come here to the greenhouse, grow on until we're ready to put them out into the ground, probably sometime towards the end of May. Now, while we're in the greenhouse, the other thing I want to do is to actually prick out our celeriac. There it is. You can see it's starting to get its first leaves now, and it's about the right size when you want to be pricking that out. Now, don't need lots and lots of celeriac. Indeed, I generally grow no more than a couple of rows. But celeriac is one of those vegetables that really is lovely, and it deserves more time in people's gardens. And it's not quite as pungent as celery, but it does have a celery kind of taste. And it's great for using in trivets to make stock. You make great soups with it, and as a vegetable on its own, it's lovely roasted. You can find lots out there with celeriac. I just think, as I said earlier, that it doesn't look the prettiest of vegetables, so people tend to stray away from it. But believe me, it's a worthwhile vegetable having in the ground, and it comes to harvest sort of late October through November through December. It will stay in the ground. The frost doesn't really hurt it that much. Unless you have really, really harsh frosts, but for us here we don't, as a rule. And so it can stay out there in the garden. You just dig it up as and when you need it. And as we'll show you later on in the season, when we come to harvest it, all of the roots that are dangling down, all you really need to do is chop those off. And then take the skin away, and you've got a lovely vegetable to use. So as with all pricking out, you just gently tease them out, hold them by the leaf, not the stem. If you break a leaf, it will grow a new leaf, but if you break the stem, it will be terminal for the plant. I've dibbed a hole into the module, and this is a question of just closing the soil off around it. And there we are, that's pricked out. I'm going to finish this tray and then we shall come back to you. These will need to be in the greenhouse now for the rest of this month, and I always look to plant out our celeriac towards the end of May, beginning of June, because one thing that these plants don't like, a bit like the French beans and the runner beans, they don't like frost, and if they get frosted and you stick them out too early and we get a frost, it will kill them. There we are, they've been pricked out. They've just been watered, so looking slightly limp, but they will pick themselves up, and yeah, they can happily grow away in this greenhouse until we get to the end of the month, when I know that there's absolutely no danger of frost and they can go out into the ground. So that's our basil sown, it's the fennel sown, and we've pricked out the celeriac. Now, I had a comment from Ken over there in Wales, and I know he's off to the Malvern show. So I hope you can sort of send us some pictures and tell us all about it and just how good it was, because I've heard a lot of good things about the Malvern show. We've never been fortunate enough to get over there yet, but one of these years we certainly will. So please let us know about it, Ken. We'd love to hear exactly how great it all is. I also know you're going to be sowing your basil, because you told me that you're going to be sowing it during this coming week. So let us know how you get on, and actually if you do something different to us, and also if anybody else is going to the Malvern show, send us some photos over. We'd love to see them and know exactly what it's all about. And it would be lovely if maybe next year in 2023, if you're going over there, we can go over there and we can all meet up. Because you only ever see me on video, and it would actually be nice to say hello to you all and actually enjoy all that's going on during that show. We shall see you on the next video.